Hey everyone, Kaylee Filio here. I'm super excited to be interviewing Jamie Farley. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. It's so great to be on your show finally. I love your podcast. And I love that you talk about parts on your podcast because parts is sometimes forgotten about.
It
So
is.
I love that your podcast is all about parts.
And that's funny too, because I'm actually going through a rebrand. I might be changing the name of the Parts Girl podcast, but I don't feel like I talk about parts that much. But we are going to
Too
touch on
funny.
it today. And I think that's the whole thing when
Yes.
I talk to people about like when I'm shifting this rebrand is like I do actually talk about parts. It's just not only parts. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm thinking about changing the name. But who knows? We'll see. Maybe the Parts Girl podcast when you listen to this, and maybe something different. I don't know.
Sounds good. I can't wait either way.
Well, we met because you have a podcast called Get in Her Lane, which I absolutely love and
Yes.
so perfect for our industry, just to highlight women. I think is the whole goal around the podcast and why you started it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. No, I started it a couple years ago. It was really just a kind of humble passion project. I just felt this desire to try to use podcasting as a platform to really just try to make positive change in automotive by saying, hey, we need to recognize that women are such a critical piece of the success of the industry. How do we get more women in the industry? How do we attract them so they even know that there's amazing career opportunities out there? And then once we can get the women in, how do we retain them? And then finally, how do we grow them into leadership positions? And I think it's so critical just because women are influencing over 80% of car buying decisions out there. So if they're not represented on the other side, whether it's in retail automotive, OEMs, vendors, then I think we're missing a critical piece of just perspective and innovation and where the industry can go. So really it's just, a platform to have the conversation and hopefully make some change, inspire others and have other successful women in automotive on to inspire others.
Yeah, and I think you've interviewed some incredible people and had those conversations because you're right. That's what podcasting has really evolved into, just especially in our industry, just creating that positive change and having those conversations around just what we're experiencing and talking about it. Because by
Hmm.
talking about it, that's how we can hopefully make the next step to action to make those changes. So it's really awesome.
Absolutely.
And so, I want to talk to you too about you recently made a big shift in your career in your life. You had 24 years at Toyota, which is
25.
25 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years. And I'm sure you did like a lot of different roles within the group or Toyota. So I guess what my biggest question is the change that you made. I'm sure it was kind of terrifying because I think what I'm trying to get after is I think we come to points in our life where we need to make a change and it's very scary because our jobs are our security and we're
Hmm.
secure. So what was it for you to step out of that comfort zone and make a change to kind of more align with what your goals shifted to or are? I guess they weren't shifted, but you know what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah, 25 years, so many years, and more years with Toyota than not with Toyota when you look at the span of my life, which is crazy to think about it in those
I didn't think about
numbers.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a lot of different roles, and most recently, I was at a regional office and I was handling the dealer network responsibilities, buy sells, market studies, ownership changes, succession planning, and I really, really loved that. That was the part of the business that I ended up gravitating to, and luckily, I got to hold that role for a really long time. So I loved it, and I think one of the reasons why moving and leaving and taking this risk was so scary is because I did love what I what I was doing every day. It's not like I was unhappy by any means.
Okay.
A couple things I just wanted to kind of take what I was doing but do it in a different way. Use it, through a different opportunity. And two, OEMs, their career paths usually have families moving, people moving all over the country in order to continue to climb up in the ranks, right, career wise. I have two kids, 13 and 11, And if we were going to move, it would have had to happen a long time ago. And we just were really settled in Chicago and our community. And then as the kids got older, it just made it harder and harder and harder
Oh yeah.
to leave, of course. So I kind of hit that proverbial glass ceiling. I couldn't go any higher. I wish I could. I wish the company worked that way where they could be giving opportunities even if you're not at the headquarters location or it's remote. But you know
It's
what? It's
corporate.
complicated.
Yeah.
It can't always work out the way you want to. I completely understand that. So I said, what can I do where I'm still doing the kind of work that I enjoy, but obviously have to leave Toyota in order to do that. So it was really scary. It took me a very long time to make the decision.
Yeah, I bet. And just making that leap of, because you loved what you did or do. And that's something that's really great because most of the time when you make those changes, you're making those changes because you're not happy and with what you're doing. So I think that your shift was a good shift or move to really, I think, broaden too, like your experience and stepping away from that. I just want to say security because it probably was felt very secure being with a company for 25 years. Like that's secure.
Yes, very secure. The best of the benefits you can imagine, obviously, with a company like Toyota, from medical to the car to, everything that goes with working, for an OEM. So, yeah, it was definitely a risk, but I look back and I was like, if I stay and limit myself, I would have been really mad at myself, like really disappointed in myself. So I'm like, here's the time. I know what I need to do. I just have to have the courage to do it. And then also with just how things have been going in our industry in terms of more focus on women, there's been a ton of leadership conferences, more, women talking about their journeys and the risks they took. So I've been inspired by a lot of that too. And I'm like, well, if I have a podcast and I'm trying to talk to the younger generation about these same things, well then I gotta do the same things, right? I gotta be that really good example as well for everybody else and not just sit where it's comfortable, really just expand my horizons and take a risk.
Yeah, and you did that. So let's talk about where you are now and what you guys are doing because that's really exciting that it always works out too. As soon as you open that door, it's like I feel like it always falls into place. It's
Yeah.
scary, but it falls
Yes.
in. It's like
It does.
you're never stuck. That's the whole thing. I think is the mindset we have to have is you may feel like you're stuck, but you're never stuck. You can always make changes and some decisions will be maybe not the best decisions. I'm not saying your decision, I'm just saying in general, but you can always
Sure.
change and make a different
Yes.
decision.
Yes. At least it's, the next step I needed to take, whether it was going to work out or not. But luckily, I've joined an amazing company. It's called Performance Brokerage Services. Very simply, we just help dealers buy and sell their dealerships. So, that's something that I loved doing on the OEM side of things, handling all the buy sells. And now get to be part of this in a completely different way and completely different part of the process, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still working with the dealers, which I've really, really enjoy. So I get to I get to keep that work going. So I'm very excited about that. And Performance is a family-owned company. They're the largest dealership brokerage firm in North America.
Wow.
They've handled over 900 transactions, and the company has over 30 years plus of experience.
I have so many
So,
questions. With my real estate background, which wasn't very extensive, this is what I think about because it's very much like you just don't think about this part of the industry, I think, because it's very much kind of similar, but it's more in the because well, then I also think about my Subway experience of that because you buy and sell franchises and I did get to go to like those Subway meetings where I got to meet like people that were actually doing that stuff, but
sure.
my question is from the manufacturer side, because I don't know that much about this. It's you're part of the process, but you're in a different space, right? Because the manufacturer still has to be involved in the buying and selling of the dealerships, right? You
Yep.
can't just
The
sell a
OEM
dealership
gets
without a manufacturer. Yeah.
right. The OEM gets involved towards the end,
Okay.
right? So buyer and seller have already engaged. Usually, first step is a letter of intent, and then they work on an asset purchase agreement. together. And then when that asset purchase agreement is finalized, then that gets sent to the OEM.
To approve it.
And then the OEM has to review it, go through all of, the due diligence that the OEM does to make sure that the buyer that's coming in is qualified, whether it be performance or capital, and then it has to get approved. So that's usually the final step before closing is OEM approval.
Got it. Okay.
So when I was with Toyota, I was doing that
The
piece.
approval part. And now,
Yeah.
that you're with Performance Brokerage Services,
Yes.
I was like, wait, what's the name? Now that you're with them, what piece are you involved in that process?
So we're at the very beginning.
Very beginning.
Now. So we're trying to help dealers who want to sell their dealership. Maybe they're at a point in their life where they need to divest. We're trying to help them find a buyer. And there's also buyers out there that are looking to acquire stores. So we're trying to match buyers and sellers together for the right opportunities and help them with their goals.
That makes sense. And this might be a stupid question, but is there like a website to like look at dealerships for sale? Like, is there a central, how do you find out if you want to browse? Because you can browse for houses on for sale.
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting the way it's done because confidentiality is a really big thing. So you can't be like, oh, so and so Ford dealership is for sale in Chicago. That's not going to work.
Yeah, because all the employees will see that. Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes. It has to be if there's a listing that we're bringing to market, it has to be vague where it won't reveal what store it is. So it can say it's the state and it's maybe the brand that's for sale, and if that is of interest, then they can contact us and reach out.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I should have known that the like confidential stuff because you don't want to just put the name out there because you just yeah. So talk to me about just preparing for sale because I think that's something that you guys advise with. And we can touch on parts because that's an asset and that's important and I think forgotten about.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things we do like to help coach the dealers through the process, especially a selling dealer before they're even making the decision to sell. There's things you can do to help prepare yourself. So we like to help them through that. And typically if a dealer's selling, it's usually an asset sale as opposed to a stock sale. Sometimes we also see the dealers get really hung up on that one very important number, the goodwill. Like what is my store going to sell for goodwill wise? But we also need to remind them and like to remind them that there's other components. There's real estate, there's your inventories, right? So parts inventory being one of them, don't overlook the parts inventory. That's an important piece. So here are some things you can do in order to prepare. So, we like to say, hey, start by taking a look at your assets, your new and used vehicle inventory, the liabilities you have, what are your long-term contracts like, anything that a buyer is really going to have questions on, and also they're going to be looking at it in order to determine a value for the store. So parts inventory is one of those important items, and the dealer will be in a much better situation if they don't wait to address that.
So if they address the parts inventory and let's say they are a dealership that hasn't done one in 10 years, which there are some out there that do that.
That's a really long time.
Yeah. I think I might be exaggerating, but I have heard of 10, like we haven't done an inventory in 10 years and I'm like, oh my gosh. But,
wow.
Let's put it at 5 because I've heard that one too. Should be every year, I think is standard good practice, right? What would you guys advise them to do? Or I guess, okay, let's think of this question. They haven't done an inventory a long time. They do the inventory. There's a bunch of issues. What you guys advise them to do to correct or help fix those issues? Because I would assume those need to be fixed. And then so they're ready to sell.
Yeah, ideally they would be fixed. And I don't know, there could be several issues, right? And obsolescence is probably the biggest one that they would have to be concerned about. I think kind of start from the start, making sure that they are pulling all of their documentation, such as like their inventory list, purchase invoices, sales records, any existing inventory management, system data, and then hire someone to come out, do the physical count of all the parts. Then you can take a look at that, and compare it to what's been recorded in the inventory, so you can get an idea of what's going on in your parts department that way.
Yeah.
They need to assess if the part is sellable or not. Does it need to be categorized as obsolete, or does it need to be categorized as scrap? So like just trying for them to try to get their arms around all of that. So determining the age, and then if they determine those obsolete parts, then they need to figure out, well, can I liquidate them? Can I sell them on eBay? Do some of them just need to go to scrap so we can get them out of the department? Having a plan to hopefully get rid of that, especially if it's been a large problem. And then from there, hopefully they can then move on to estimating what the current market value is of those parts. And then ideally they're doing this early on in the process, and they can communicate with the buyer what this looks like. Because the buyer is going to want to know. The buyer wants to know what they're getting into, what they're purchasing, or if there's a problem, a buyer wants to say, "Hey, I'm not purchasing, XYZ parts."
Yeah, because have you seen any buyers actually buy ops like the whole entire inventory? It's
No, it's typically written up in the asset purchase agreement that, buyer's not going to be purchasing any obsolete parts. And usually it's worded like parts older than 12 months. So, but obviously if there's issues in the parts department, it could just slow things down, because they're just trying to assess what's really there, and what's going to transfer over, what the buyer is going to be purchasing. And we don't want that causing an issue with getting to closing, or even at closing if they've waited too long.
Yeah, because working through those problems is a process. It's not just like a weekend thing.
Right.
And then you also have to think about too, like they obviously knew they had all this obsolescence. I feel like, I mean, they would have to. You would think. So then you have to like, my mind goes back to like, how did you get to this point? Why? I think most people know why they have the obsolescence, but I don't know if they really understand. I don't want to say they don't understand. I don't know if they really know like the process of like how can we make it so it stops growing so much. Like and I think when a buyer is buying a dealership, they don't want to be buying a problem parts department, because if it has a lot of obsolescence, wouldn't you think they'd be like, well, I don't really. What do you do with all those employees? I don't know. Like my mind thinks about that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, a buyer doesn't want to inherit the problem. So optimizing the performance in the parts department, like any of the
Before
departments in
you
the
want to
dealership,
sell.
while they're going through the buy sell, before they're going through, is the most ideal situation. It's going to make the dealership more attractive to the buyer too. It's going to give them a lot more confidence. So even if the dealer has decided, hey, I'm going to sell, and they're going through the process, which could sometimes take a long time. It could take 3 to 6 months, 8 months sometimes on the long side. They should still be looking at how to be running their operation the best way possible and as efficient as possible. So it's like, don't give up, don't ignore it. Are there still ways to optimize the inventory, right, and reduce like the costs, and improving in inventory management, things like that. So those things should still be a priority simultaneously with trying to get the store
Yeah,
ready to sell.
because when you think about selling, you're thinking about like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. So then why would I work on the business? So at least that's what I think. So what is the majority of reasons why dealerships sell their dealerships?
All sorts of reasons. So a lot of it could be, a family's decided that they're just going to divest and get out of the business. Sometimes it has to do with just aging dealers, and maybe they don't have a succession plan where they're going to be handing it down to a family member, and they just decide that part of their succession plan is actually to sell the store. Some dealers sell because maybe they were growing their portfolio of dealerships, and there's a store that maybe doesn't fit their portfolio anymore, which they have grown, and they're like, okay, well, I decided now that I know what I've been doing for many years that this is the model that I want to work on, and the store really doesn't fit my model anymore. So we see all different sorts of reasons, and it could be really personal and really specific and to each dealer. And there's definitely different reasons why. So one of the things we like to tell the dealers too is what's important to you. What are you trying to get out of this? So identify that first is going to help the process.
Yeah, I would definitely. That's a good question to ask to start. What do you enjoy most about it? Because it sounds like that's what you loved at Toyota, and so like digging in deep, like what is it about what you're doing that is like fulfilling, and why do you love it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm still in the process of learning so much more from this side of the business. So that's really exciting. I know that when I was at Toyota, one of the most exciting things was getting an opportunity to get someone their very first Toyota store. And that was really, really exciting.
That's
So
exciting.
that was the most rewarding thing. And there's opportunities here, of course, right? I mean, it's all brands, right? So it's not just Toyota, it's any brand, but seeing someone's dream get fulfilled because they were able to purchase a store that they've wanted, or even if it's a more established auto group, they're adding to their portfolio and they're meeting their goals.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see it come together.
Yeah, I would think that's really cool to see, because you made great points. Like someone, because there was a point in time where I wanted to buy a Subway restaurant because I was like, I love this. This is what I'm doing, and I can imagine like that feeling of, because I thought about it and like getting your own store, and in a way, I got to help create the second store that my boss built, because it was not just one that she bought, it was one that she built from the ground up, and I got to be part of that process. So I think that's also really rewarding, and so like I just kind of am like relating of like that it's cool to be a part of like someone's
Yeah.
dream to
Yeah, absolutely. And it's life changing.
life
It's
changing. Yeah.
life changing for them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so to wrap up the show, I do want to ask you about just kind of what you see in the future of the industry, and just kind of your perspective on, what you're most excited about, I guess, in the industry, and what you're, I guess, too, what you're scared of. Like, are you scared of, because there's so much change going on. And I think that it can be scary, especially I mean, like, look at what we just went through the last couple weeks with CDK. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, let's talk about what you're scared of, and then what are you most excited about? Or you can do it whichever way you want.
Okay. So I think the thing that I'm scared of is not having the industry evolve as quickly as I'm hoping for it to.
That's a good
I, s-
point.
yeah, I just go back to the conversations I have with my groups of friends and family who know nothing about the car business.
Okay.
And it's still the same story of I went into the dealership and I had a bad experience. And I want that to stop. So, and I love dealers and retail automotive, and they do so many incredible things, and they're so important for the communities, and they employ so many people.
Yes.
And I believe in them wholeheartedly.
There's just
The
that
dealer
percentage.
franchise network is so important
Yeah.
to our economy and to our communities. It just needs to go in a more positive direction because we can get there, but we need to stop holding ourselves back because we need to be able to walk into a dealership and have a seamless experience. It shouldn't take that long. I want to walk in and I want to see gender balance. And I truly believe that if women are holding at least 50% of the positions, there will be more innovation and we'll get there faster.
I believe in that too. And what the first point that you made, just, what we're fearful of is the industry not adopting, how did you say it? Not adopting, or not
We're
changing,
not evolving as
not, yeah,
fast.
not involving.
Yeah, as fast as I want to see it, right?
Well,
It's
it's
still,
not even just
and it's
you,
changing.
it's the consumers, how fast the consumers want to see it. Yeah, I think, and then, okay, what are you excited about?
I'm excited that there's so many possibilities always. And that is such the fun part about automotive and why I love it so much and why I want to shout to the rooftops. Like, come check out this industry, especially for women that would never even consider it. It's so unpredictable, and there's just so many great opportunities in it, whether you're on the retail side, OEM side, vendor side. I love that about the industry. So I'm going to continue to be excited about that going forward. And I know that's probably not specific enough,
No,
but that's my honest
I
answer.
think that's the perfect answer, because I think just anyone that's listening that's not in the industry, that could be the answer that they needed to hear, because I think it's evolved so much in just the flexibility, because I think when you look at dealerships, you think like long hours, no life, working hard, which is great, but also we have adjusted or shifted into this, like, we do need to have some sort of balance in our life. Like, women especially are I don't want to say dads are not, but that we're just more the children rely on us more. They want us more. It's a natural nature, dad's there, but they want mom. It's just, I think.
Plus moms
Yeah.
moms are carrying the mental load. Dads typically, I don't want to generalize too much, but
No,
this is how it happens
that's
in my
okay.
household. I'm running the household, and I also have a full-time job, and he's at work all day, which is great, but it's kind of like, well, where's dinner, and who did the grocery shopping and all that stuff, and who did the camp forms and the health forms and the doctor's appointments, and
Yes.
the laundry list of all the stuff that has to get done. It is the mental load typically that falls on the mom,
It does typically.
right? And
Yeah.
you have to do all those things, and the husband is like, oh, just let me know if you need me to help with something. And you're like, well, you're not carrying all of that around in your head
Yeah.
that you have to do. So that is very taxing, and it's exhausting.
It's very exhausting. I mean, we could spend a little bit of time talking about that, because it's because of course we don't want to generalize it, because I think I'm relating to you, because that's how it is in my, I'm the one that's planning the dinners, making sure the groceries, making the lunches, getting the kids to babysitter, all the things.
Yes.
And then on a full-time job too. And
Yep.
fortunately, I have had the flexibility of, since I became a mother, of working remote, so I'm not having to go to an office every day. But I think there's a lot of companies in our industry that are like that too, where that opens it up, I think, a little bit more. Maybe women are just more open to, like, okay, I can go to work because I do have this flexibility that I can be there for my kids, and taking that, but still balancing the household. And I don't know, some days I'm a basket case. I literally can't remember anything. Like, my husband will be
It's a
talking,
lot.
and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, because I can't, my brain cannot take anything more right now.
Yeah, it's so much that if I didn't have a full-time job, I would still have a full-time job
Yeah.
running the household
Or
and
wouldn't you,
being a parent.
like, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself either. Like, I think about it, I'm like, what if I was just at home, and there's nothing wrong with just that, but I'm just like, I would be like lost. I would be bored, I think.
I would work out a lot more. I know I would do that.
I would probably work out a lot more. I'd probably go to Goodwill and shop and thrift store. I would have more me time, I think. Yeah.
Yes, I'd read a lot more books.
Yes. Thank you, Jamie, for coming on the show. If anyone wants to reach out to you, I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn, and we'll have the links below. But again, thank you for coming on. Thanks so much for joining me on the Trailblaze Your Path podcast. I hope you're leaving us inspired. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps. Follow me on social media, check out our YouTube channel for more content, and remember, new episodes drop every other Friday. Keep blazing your own trail, and I'll catch up with you next time.